starting with actually looking at your table and what is on it or not on it, and just sort of taking a little inventory. A before and after photo might be a great idea. Now, when I'm talking about looking at your table and seeing like what's on it and what's not, I'm talking about, is there clutter? Hi, and welcome to another episode. I'm so excited to be here. We are now in the month of November 2023, and this time of year, the word harvest always sort of rings true. This time of year, I always think of things like gathering family, gathering foods, just like gatherings. The word harvest to me actually like reminds me of gatherings. And gatherings can be really tricky for picky eaters, for parents of picky eaters, grandparents of picky eaters, etc. Because when people gather, there's almost always food involved, right? So that brings up some of these feelings that we have about food, about how things might be going or not going with food, right? So I know that this time of year gets tricky, so I am going to give you some strategies throughout the whole month to make this season much easier for everyone. Your kids, you, your families, right? So that's the goal. And specifically this week, we are going to be talking about sort of the table and focusing on just everything related to tables. And tables are really, really important. And if you're like, well, my kid never eats at the table, then this is a great episode to listen to. Now, not every family eats at a traditional table, I guess I'll call it, like, wooden table, 4 legs, chairs around it, things like that. Sometimes people eat on the couch, and that is sort of their table. We've had families that eat all together at a kid's table before, or, the thing we really don't want to see is, no place to sit and gather, which would be like walking around the house eating meals, right? That is less than ideal for several different reasons, safety being one of them, right? But, right, so this month, again, I'm talking about like gatherings and getting together, and tables notoriously are known for bringing people together, having them sit and share stories, foods, traditions, things like that. And, even if your kid is not yet at the point where they're sitting at the table, they might be running around the house and you might be feeding them bites here and there. I'd say, you got to start somewhere. We're not going to like force them to sit at the table. That's just never going to work. But there's some things that I think are really key that we have to do. Like, so if your goal is to get them at the table and you want those, sort of like Hallmark family meals together that you see on TV, there's a place we have to start, and it might surprise you. And I've talked about this before, but, just starting with actually looking at your table and what is on it or not on it, and just sort of taking a little inventory. A before and after photo might be a great idea. Now, when I'm talking about looking at your table and seeing like what's on it and what's not, I'm talking about, is there clutter on our tables? What is on there? Is it your purse? Is there homework on there? Is there stuff you have to donate? Some garbage, maybe not. Maybe your table is clean and tidy, which is great. But there's some still things that we're going to talk about, even if your table is clean and tidy, right? That is a good start though. But we want the focus of the table to be gathering people for meals and stories, right? So we need a table that is inviting to do so, because we're never going to, make an area that people want to go to that has a lot of stuff going on. And, you might think of stuff like, well, like there's like, like bowls and plates and things. And even sometimes that can be a little cluttered, right? So think about going out to eat at a nice restaurant and what that table looks like. Now, I'm not saying you have to get fancy cloth napkins and fancy cloth tablecloths and very special fine silverware or glassware. It does not have to be that complicated at all. But I want you to think about what that table looks like and what makes you want to sit there. A lot of times there might be some decorations on the table, like flowers. There might be some, like a nice, like a salt or a pepper shaker. But there's usually not a lot of clutter on the table, right? Sometimes there are maybe like a plate or like a napkin rolled up with some silverware. But usually it's very plain. Usually it's a solid color, like a white, and that's actually very intentional. The white is because we want the food to be sort of the star of the show. So anything against the white is going to make it pop, right? So a lot of times it'll either just be like a plain wooden table, or there might be like a solid color on it. Now think about like how that makes you feel. Like when you go to a restaurant, you sit down and there's a nice clean table ready for you. Like, does that sort of get you ready, like physically and emotionally for eating? Like, sometimes we talk about these mealtime cues, and the table is loaded with different cues. A lot of times when we see, a picture of, a restaurant or a table, it might get us excited to start eating, or you might want to know what they have on the menu, or, there's certain colors that might bring up certain memories. There's so many things. I mean, we could talk about tables for a while before I get bored. But the idea is, what can we do to your table that will make it have those same sort of feelings about getting excited to eat and being happy to sit down and just be there at the table? Like, make that the spot that people want to be hanging out at. And if you're like, my kid's just never going to sit at the table, well, I'm here to tell you that we get kids to sit at the table all the time. And not because we make them or force them, because they actually want to come to the table and enjoy it, right? That's like part of what we teach parents, how to get kids to enjoy food. It's more than just eating food. It's sitting at the table. It's engaging with food. It's engaging with the other people who are sitting at the table. So like, this time of year is perfect for like reassessing our table. So what's on it? Is there anything we can get rid of that is cluttering the table? And I am so 100% guilty about this. And like right now, my table has like these like little candlesticks with candles on top of them, obviously. And honestly, if I'm being perfectly honest, they shouldn't even be there because they're really cluttering the table. I should really move them off of the table because honestly, they get in the way. They don't make eating at the table super comfortable. I've also had like a big bowl in the past that has like fruit in it and stuff like that, which you would think like, okay, fruit on the table. Like, yeah, that's Why would you take that away? Well, the bowl, honestly, itself is like too big. I really should have a different bowl that's smaller, maybe, because the size of the table doesn't warrant that bowl size, right? So, do you understand kind of what I'm talking about? It's just like we want everyone to have plenty of room to put their stuff on the table, their plates, bowls. We don't want to feel like, oh, like I can't, like I feel like I can't move without like knocking something over. So the table should not be cluttered. Right? So take this time to declutter your table, whatever might be on it. Even sometimes visual can be a clutter. So I actually try to avoid tablecloths that have a lot of visual patterns going on. And maybe that's a total personal preference. So like if that doesn't resonate with you, don't worry about it. But the actual so for example, I have like a few different fall colored tablecloths. Like one's like a yellow, one's like a burnt orange. One has a lot of pumpkins that are a variety of colors. Now, when the pumpkin tablecloth is on the table, honestly, I don't find myself really excited to sit at the table. I think it's just too visually busy. So I honestly enjoy sitting at the table more when it's just a solid color, believe it or not. And like these might seem so trivial to you. However, I'm telling you, they make a big difference. Remember, I always say it's the baby steps that lead to the bigger steps, right? So when we want to see big changes, we got to start with the babies. So this would be like one of those baby steps, is like swapping some of that stuff out. And sometimes it's as easy as no tablecloth. Maybe you just have the table that you have. Now, I would say if the table is glass, I would recommend a tablecloth because the glass can actually be, again, a visually distracting thing because you can see through it. So you see everyone's feet moving. You see the animals in your house maybe walking around under the table. So that visually, again, becomes like something else to distract from the food, and it takes the focus off of the food. So, number one, right, decluttering our table. So hopefully you got some great ideas from that. Now, if you haven't already, or if you're not even sure if your child is in need of any sort of help with their eating, take our quiz below. It's 2 minutes and it gives you more like specific tailored instruction on sort of like where to go based on your answers. So if there's like not really that big of a concern, it'll give you some like quick, easy strategies versus if you have like a lot of red flags, it'll send you to the page that will give you the most support and help there. So you go to www.pickyeaters, eaters with an S at the end, pickyeaterstest.com. You can take the quiz there and get started on all of the help that you need. Okay. So, and if you have not already, please make sure you subscribe down below. Subscribing actually does help the algorithm tell other people that the podcast is relevant and helps people find the podcast and hopefully find the help that they need, right? So if you would do that, please rate, review, and subscribe. Would really appreciate it. Now into my next tip for the table. Decorations, which you might think are opposite of what we just talked about with decluttering. But again, it's kind of all relative to the size of your table. Like it really totally depends on, your table might not need any decorations, or it might just feel sort of incomplete without something on it. And, we can think about decorations in many different ways. Like, we can do, even just like a simple rock from outside or just one small pumpkin, those like mini pumpkins, that alone might be perfect for your table. Like it's not interfering, but it still makes the table look inviting and happy. So something like that might help. Even having your kids help make the decorations. Now, it, again, depends on how big your table is and what you have room for. But we've done things like finding rocks from the garden, painting those rocks or not painting those rocks, getting some fresh flowers. You know, they don't have to be like a lot of flowers or very expensive. It could literally even be just cutting flowers from outside your house and putting them in a small vase full of water. You know, like when you go to the restaurants and they have like those like little mini vases with like just like like 2 or 3 flowers in them, and it's just like so cute looking. You know, that kind of brings a smile to my face whenever I sit down at a restaurant. So like that's something, again, thinking about myself, I would think, okay, that's something that makes me happy to sit at the table. So you know, that would maybe like be something good to add to my table, and at our home. You know, you could even have things like, I remember, when I was a kid, I had this like book of, like crafts that you can do for Thanksgiving. And I remember one of the crafts was like making your own, silverware holder out of like, I think like a toilet paper tube and decorating it. But having the kids do like some sort of a project to help with the goal in mind that like, this is special, this is going to be on our table. And kids love helping and love creating, just like it's like a natural process that kids really enjoy helping and creating for the most part. There are some kids who are very oppositional and the thought of helping you would send them running in the opposite direction, right? So of course, it's not like that for every child. I'm not going to pretend that it is. But if you can encourage them to help in some way or create something in some way for the table, or to find something for the table, you know, that would be pretty cool. You know, kids that love building, I bet there's like a cool Lego turkey that you could build, for example, just as an example, right? So here in America, we're going to have Thanksgiving this month, but it could be something else. It could be like Lego flowers, right? Which I think would be pretty cool, right? So for your older kids, that might be like a fun project. Like you're like, hey, I really need something super cool to add to the table. Now, if your kids are oppositional, I do have an idea here for you. Making them think that they came up with it, or actually telling them that they can't, like, those sometimes work. So, you know, if you were like, let's just use like a Lego flower example. And you're like, I really want them to put these Legos together to make like this pretty flower thing. And I want to put it on the table. Right. So if you're like, if you say like, no more, you have too many Legos. I can't, or like, oh, someone gave me this Lego thing, but I know you're never going to want to do this. This is flowers. You're never going to make these. I certainly don't want you to make them. They might be like, wait, no. Of course I want to make them. Like, what are you talking about? Give me those right now. And then once they make them, you'd be like, well, where would we even put this? Like, I don't want it on my table. Like, it's just going to take up room. I'm going to be like, no, the table's a great place to put it. So that's for kids who are oppositional. That's just an idea. You know your kids best. You'll know what would work or what wouldn't work. So feel free to throw that idea in the garbage if you don't agree with it or think it'll be helpful. But we have had some success getting kids to do things like that and getting excited about doing it by thinking that you don't want them to do it, which is it's so wild, right? Kids can be wild sometimes. But something like that might be a really good addition. And then that could be something that like every time you sit down, you're very like proud about that. It's like, wow, I can't believe you made that. It makes me so happy to sit down and see that. I'm like, this is amazing, and that kind of will help them want to come to the table and be proud. And especially, when people come over to the house, right? It's like, oh, wow, did you show them what you made? Like, we're going to all sit around the table and look at this cool thing that you made. Stuff like that is like, it's like perfect for kids sometimes. But getting them involved in the decoration, I think, is helpful and key to getting them invested and happy with sitting and looking at that table, right? It's like if they had a part in creating that table with you, they're going to be more likely to sit at that table and be happy there, right? Because now that table now has a positive connotation and memory with it, which is, hey, I made something pretty here. Like, I made something really cool, and everyone's going to sit here and look at it. So that's an idea. Okay. So before I move to our last one here for today, if you do need more specific help, I do have a chapter about this in my book and Mealtime Mindset, and this is also in our course, Picky Plate to Clean Slate, which teaches you how to unpicky your picky eater, essentially. So if you do need more help with that, you can find that on our website at foodologyfeeding.com. Now for our last one, making your table clean and neat. Now you might think, well, that goes along with decluttering and it's sort of the opposite of decorating it. But I'm actually talking about the surroundings of the table, because your eating table is more than literally just the four legs of the table. It's the chairs, it's whatever space is under it, next to it, around it. And if it is complete chaos everywhere, even if you clear the table part, if everything in the environment is like chaotic and cluttered, I think that can still impact. So, especially with kids, things get dirty. They just do. They get messy. There's food caked onto chairs. Sometimes splattered on, like, if you have we have a china cabinet next to our table, and I swear for like 3 weeks there was like some sort of spot of sauce on there, and I kept forgetting to clean it, right? But doing things like taking like a half an hour just to vacuum the rugs if there are any, or the floors surrounding the table, making sure crumbs are picked up, that it is clean. Because inviting and clean go hand in hand. So I really do make an effort, and of course things get out of hand. Like, this is like real life here. So your kitchen's not always going to look like, like it came out of a magazine. Like, I'm not saying it has to be so perfect, but if you can take like 30 minutes to just sort of like declutter the area, like, not, let's just say like the table's off, you already did whatever with the table. This is the general surrounding area. Like, if there is like literally like a pile of clothes right next to the table on, I don't know, a chair or something, I don't know. That could be, the energy around that table, right? We want it to be happy, pure, clean. When there's a lot of things in our environment, and they're like sort of just thrown haphazardly, that energy can get stagnant. So sometimes it's great to just like clear things out. Anything you're not using, get rid of. Anything that's expired, get it out of there, get it out of the pantry. Those types of things help get energy flowing. And, if you've had a pattern of your kids not liking the table or not having good experiences at the table, we want some fresh energy in there. And I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but I have, and I've heard other people say it as well, that like when you like do like a little clean out of an area, like it almost feels lighter Does that ever happen to you? Like, it's like, oh, like you just like almost take a deep breath in and you're like, oh yeah, this feels good. This feels different. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but something's different about this place, right? What that feeling is the energy in the room made by moving objects around, like stagnant objects that have been sitting a long time, maybe collecting dust, sort of like almost like you breathe like a new life into the space. And that's sort of like what I'm talking about. Like my goal for you with this is you're kind of bringing a new energy and a new life to your eating space. Because when we want to see these changes and we want our kids to really love meal times and love coming to the table and doing the whole bit there, we're going to need fresh energy. If you keep doing what you've always done, you're going to get what you always got. And if you've always got, a bad mealtime experience, let's do some things to shake it up. And shaking up your eating environment is a really great, easy, free example of a way to do that. And I'm telling you, this is not just going to benefit your kids. You are also going to feel way better about eating at that table, in that room, because of these little changes that you've made, these shifts in energy around the table, right? So if you've ever done feng shui or heard or whatever, it's the same sort of principle. And I could do a whole episode on feng shui in your kitchen, but it is, it's really important to understand that the energy of an area can really affect our mood in that area and, how things go. Things can go great or things can go not so great. And I really urge you to think on this. And if you're like, yeah, you know what? I haven't cleaned that room in a bit. It's getting a little cluttered. It's a little chaotic in there. There might be some things I can get rid of. Do it and see how you feel after. And please share in the comments with me. Tell me what it feels like. Like, did you have a shift? Was the next mealtime a little bit better? And, give that energy a little bit of time to settle. And I also always find that like literally opening a window and like almost like pushing out the old air and having that fresh air recycle in, it literally is like a fresh breath of air that comes into the space. So these are my tips for, happy table makes a happy meal. So you're going to declutter your table. You're going to create an inviting table with, decorations and, like some calm visual elements. And 3, you're going to clean and tidy the surrounding area as well and breathe some fresh new energy, get that stale old energy out, open the windows or doors and sort of just literally clear out that area. And then I want you to tell me how it goes with your next couple of meals and if you feel any changes there. And I'm really excited to hear about them. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I can't wait to hear how it goes. And we will see you again next week.
Thank you for listening to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater. To learn more about achieving your child's feeding goals, check out Christine's website at foodologyfeeding.com. And be sure to tune in next time to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater.